right now we're the heat of summer. It's as hot as it gets all year. But you know what that means? It's as hot as it gets all year. So what's the trend fixing to do? We're fixing to trend back the other direction, right? So now, normally when that starts going on, Heath alluded to it a little bit earlier, turnover. So turnover normally will start, you got to start thinking about it now, because I've seen it happen in August and I've seen it happen in October. So September is kind of the middle for the highest percentage for a chance of turnover. What I will tell you is that we have had some weird stuff this year. There's just been some weird things going on with the weather, from rain to unseasonable temperatures and all this stuff. The water temps are still 88, 89 degrees from the top to the bottom. And we had a cool front, I can't remember how long, 2 or 3 weeks ago. The water was starting to get up around 90. Then we had a morning, it was 61 degrees in July.
It was amazing.
Like it was almost in the 50s in July in Texas. Like that's so weird. But what that did was that was a major shock to the water temperature. Dropped it back down. It has since climbed back up. But when we had a thermocline set up. And so when that happened, that thermocline just disappeared. Well, what does that mean we had? The thermocline wasn't real hard and it was real deep, so there wasn't like a whole bunch of deoxygenated water when this happened. But if we had a thermocline and it disappeared, what happened? We had a turnover. If you have a thermocline and it all of a sudden goes away, you had a turnover. It was a very minor turnover. It was a very slight turnover because the thermocline was real deep. There wasn't a lot of deoxygenated water down there. And so there wasn't a big deal. It didn't really affect the fishing for a long period of time or in a drastic way. But we had one. Well, now, granted, I've got my depth finder set on the deepest I view is 35 because everything I fish is from 15 to 25. I don't really go, maybe 30, but I never go deeper than 35. Like out here on this fishery, I don't. Maybe in the middle of winter I might look at some stuff deeper than that, but pretty rare case. So my graph stays set on 35 feet because I can view everything, and I like the fish arches to always be the same size. Ronnie's taught me that this year. I used to run auto settings. Ronnie had a better way of doing it. If you keep your graph set on one depth range, then your arcs will always be the same, whether they're in 5 foot or 25 foot. You get used to seeing the arc the same size. Now you get more accurate in the fishing and judging what size of fish you're looking at. So if there's a thermocline below 35 feet sitting up, I don't know. I don't know. But if there's a thermocline below 35 feet sitting up, it's not going to be a turnover that's really going to matter. So we're going to talk to you about turnover situations. And this stuff will absolutely relate to when you do have a hard turnover and you get all the bryozoan sacks and all big bubbles and the silt on the top. This will definitely relate to that. But what's going to happen is, whether it turns over or not, when it goes from being 90 and that water temp starts falling towards 80 and below, those fish got to transition. There'll be a lot of fish that'll stay offshore. Sure, if they don't have the big oxygen content go out, there'll be a lot of fish that don't leave offshore, and that's fine. But there'll be a lot of fish and a lot of shad and a lot of bait fish that will push back into these creeks. And so what I want to talk to you guys tonight was about structures and areas to target when they very first, like when you first start seeing this water drop, this movement will start to happen. They don't go from the end of Dale Point, the end of Dale Ridge out there, to the back of Dale Creek in a couple days. That's not how it works. They move back in little increments. Okay, they move back as Mother Nature tells them. So when that water starts flipping and starts going down, they start easing in. And then when it cools down some more, they come in a little more. And then when it gets down in the 70s, now they're getting towards the back. And when it hits 70, they're in the back, Jack. Like they're back there. And that's when the fall, that's November, and that's when the fall bites, end of October, that's when it's going off.
And that's when you can catch them in the dirt, basically.
That's right.
You'll catch them in water so shallow that you don't know how they're not covered, how the water's even covering them.
Yeah, how you don't see their fins. Yeah. And so what I want to talk about tonight, because this is coming, like this is going to be here before we know it. Like we get a cold front, maybe two, and this is going to be happening real quick. So where do they go? Right now they're all offshore, and a lot of them are suspending and doing that August thing that's kind of a pain in the butt, right? Well, when that changes and the water starts to fall, where's the first spot? How many people have heard a tournament pro or touring guys talk about, man, the fish are coming to me. Fish are coming to me.
In Lake Pole?
They say I'm in front of the fish. I've got them coming to me. Y'all have heard them say that? Well, what we're going to talk about tonight If you start, as soon as you start to see the water temps do this, if you'll get on this, the fish will be coming to you. It's what I'll be doing, because I want the fish coming to me. So fish are out on the main lake. So let's say we got the main lake right here. So a couple of these are my two favorite things to target whenever that cool down just first starts. This right here is a main lake point. This top situation, this is a main lake point. There's fish out here right now, and they've been there off and on. When the school pulls up on it, they're there all summer, and they're out there suspended off of it right now. When that water starts cooling down and they make their initial move, this would be a big creek back here. This is the mouth of a creek. This points out on the main lake. Well, these fish are going to go back here. They're going to go up this creek arm right here. What I've got right here is, you know, on a point you'll have your contour lines will spread out where that point runs out into the lake, right? Well, if you'll look for these steep banks, okay, these banks that have maybe a little shallow shelf and then have a drop off. These fish love, on this lake specifically, and in all older lakes around here, these fish love to use these lips and these edges that run down these steep banks as transition areas. So what's going on is this lake's going on 40 what? Oh, they're right at 40 years now. This lake's been going. In that amount of time, your creek channels, especially your deep creek channels, like out in the middle of Birch Creek or Williams Creek, like when you got the mouth of that creek channel out in the middle, where it first leads in, it's not sharp anymore. It's silted in. Well, they're not going to use that to travel. And a lot of that's deeper than they want to be. It might be in 40 feet out there, 35 feet, and they want to be shallower than that. So instead of using that creek channel as a highway where it's either A, silted in too much, or B, in too deep of water, what they like to use is these contour lines get tight. You can kind of see what we've drawn here. There'll be a little bit of a shallow shelf that eases out, then it'll have a drop off. This particular spot that I drew right here it goes from being 6 foot to being 17 foot like that. And that stretch like that might go for 1,000 yards or 2,000 yards or a half a mile sometimes, depending on where you are on the lake and how it's shaped up. So in that big stretch, where are they going to be? Because that's a big stretch to fish. Right there, you see that right there? I drew just a little dot right there that says dock. So right here off the side of this point, where this ledge comes into play, and there's a little shelf, there's actually 2 docks on this particular spot. It's actually marked on the Fish Life app right now. You can go on there and see exactly where it is. Go fish it for yourself. See the ledge I'm talking about? There's a big bay-shaped creek right behind it, and these 2 docks sit right out here. They're the first 2 you come to. When those fish first transition, that's their first stop sign. You're going to hear me talk over the next month and a half, till we get to the fall bite. You'll hear me mention the word stop signs a lot. What a stop sign is anything that a fish can set up on to feed on his way in and out. It might be a creek channel swing, it might be a secondary point, like if there was another little point that kicked out here, a little escarpment, whatever. It might be a lot of different things. But stop signs are always the biggest factor when fish are transitioning and moving. So docks are great. I've had people ask me about fishing docks. Docks are one of the best stop signs you could ever imagine. They always go from this much water to a certain depth. So if you've got it, like this particular dock has like 14 feet on the end of it, and right out in front of it falls all the way down to 17 feet. So this particular dock has 0 feet of water to 14 feet of water, close to even deeper water, with standing timber, shade, and this one even has some brush around it, which makes it even better. Docks are tremendous stop signs. They're about as good as you can imagine. The fish can change depths anytime he wants to. He can stop. He's got ambush points everywhere. He's got shade when it's hot. Like, there's a lot of things that are good about a dock. Now, this year, with us not losing the oxygen content, a lot of those fish are going to set up on the end of that dock. What I'll tell you is, when it turns over, like when it starts cooling and these fish start moving in and then that lake turns over, they're going to get in the dirt. But they might be on the main lake, but they're going to get in the dirt of that dock. So if you start seeing a lot of them bubbles and you start seeing a lot of that brown water and it looks nasty out there, I don't think it's really going to happen this year. But if you do, you fish these same transition stop signs, but you fish them in the dirt. And you use a reaction bait. Swim bait that vibrates a lot. A square bill is chartreuse blackback squarebill might be my #1 bait choice when the turnover's going on.
Now, something I found, even if you don't have that dock there, and you have these tight contour lines, there doesn't have to be really anything else there as long as bait are there.
Yeah.
If you pull into, a main lake point, like I said, early fall, as it's getting cooler, say you see 2 or 3 herons sitting there.
Oh yeah.
I don't care I don't care if it's just nothing but a sand bank. They're there for a reason, and those fish are going to be there because they're following the shad migration. They're going to be right behind them. I don't know how many, if y'all fish Cypress Springs, that was a pattern I used to run in the fall in Cypress Springs. I would hit, if there was birds and shad, there'd be absolutely nothing, no grass, and it was when the lake was low one year. There'd be no grass, no stumps, no nothing, but they would be in this deep of water on nothing but shad, just because those shad, and you can see them flipping, especially early in the morning. You'd see those shad working. You could pull in there and like I said, throw a swim bait, a square bill. I'd even throw like a little 1/4 ounce lipless, and you could just worm out, and you could run that pattern on the whole lake, just following that first stop sign. Like I said, even if there wasn't a dock there, as long as you had a steeper bank to where it wasn't just a foot of water for 100 yards, but as long as you had some 5 or 6 foot water, really pretty close to the bank, you could catch them.
Well, and the deal is there's 2 choices. You gotta have something to locate the fish for you. And me and Heath both referenced something to locate the fish. I referenced an obvious stop sign in a dock, and Heath referenced birds that clued him in. If not, you got to cover that whole stretch of bank, and you're not like, are they here? Are they there? And that's when it's on you to be a better fisherman and cover that water efficiently until you get a bite, and then settle in and dig in and kind of try to dial it in. So if you've got that long stretch of steep bank off the side of a main lake point, that's your first. To me, that's the first place I start looking for that all over the lake. And I got a treasure trove of spots like that on Lake Fork. The good thing about Lake Fork is there's always a stop sign. There's a stand of timber. There's a brush pile. There's a dock. There's a patch of duckweed. There's something for those fish to use anywhere they go on this lake. We're so blessed with what we have here. But right off the side of the main lake points, that's the first place you want to look, okay? Now, more especially when if the lake does turn over hard, like when the turnover itself is going on, one of my favorite things to do is to get just inside of a creek. So now we're going to drop down to the bottom picture. This is a creek. The main lake's going to be down here off the map. This is a major creek arm. So it's going to have a big source of fish. That's that's an important factor in this. You don't need to do this in no name. No name can hold a lot of fish at times, but it's not going to be the source of fish that a Little Caney's going to hold, or any of these other major creeks. Little Mustang, Big Mustang, Williams, all these big creek arms. That's what we're talking about. When I say creek, I'm talking about a big creek arm. So you get inside that creek, and you find you a secondary point, a point inside the creek, like this right here. This black stuff is land, okay? And what I look for is where either sometimes the main channel might swing over here. This particular one that I drew right here, there's a creek channel that runs back into this pocket that swings right into this point. It cuts right in front of it and then goes right down the side for a little while, then kicks back out. It's a transition point, and it's a stop sign. You got a point. This runs out, it's real shallow right here. So there is actually a huge ledge where this is only 3 or 4 foot deep, way out in front of this point, and that creek channel is like 14, 15 foot deep. Does that sound familiar? Just like the docks, a little bit different scenario, a little bit further in the creek, but it's something where the fish can transition from deep to shallow quickly, and it's a stop sign and an ambush point for them. Okay, and these are the things that and I love, like I said, this is really for me where that square bill comes in. When a lake turns over and kicks over hard, I'm going to start looking for secondary points inside major creeks with a major drop off, and I'm going to fish that square bill on the top side of them, and I'm going to beat it up. Now, general turnover fishing, general transition fishing, especially during turnover when there's not a lot of oxygen in the water and the fish don't feel real good, they're not real active, and they don't really want to bite. Who's experienced that out here?
All the time. Everybody.
Anytime the bite's real tough, This is my thesis on when the bite's real tough. Everybody get a good look at that? Everybody see it? Y'all can pass it around if you want to. Kind of look at some of those diagrams. Anywhere in the country I'm fishing, anywhere that I've ever fished for a long time, my theory, when the bite gets real tough, you have two options, and you need to do whichever one suits your needs and your style the best. You can go real finesse, you can go drop shot on light line, you can go wacky worm, weightless plastics, you can finesse them and slow way down. Okay? And those fish that are tougher to catch, you can catch them that way. Or you can go what I call super reaction. Bright two-tone colors on crankbaits that vibrate real hard. A movement 80X, something that just moves a lot of water. A chatterbait. Big heavy flipping baits that you flip up the standing cover and it falls real fast. Something that those fish are just sitting there, but this catches them off guard and all of a sudden they lash out at it. You either got to get them to super react or you got to go super finesse when the bite gets super tough. I think y'all know which direction I normally take.
I used to fish with a guy quite a bit that he kind of opened my eyes, and this was probably 15 years ago.
Boy.
That he would throw.
Show old butt.
He would reel a crankbait faster than I thought a fish could swim.
Yeah.
And well, like I said, we call it. He was like that all the time anyway. You know, even if he wasn't fishing, he was just always like.
You knew Ronnie Kelly 15 years ago?
No, we were fishing together. I remember the first time I saw him do it, we were fishing together, and it was fall. Fishing, like I said, just nothing banks, fishing fall, and he was throwing the little bitty small square bill. I think it was like the 0.5 back then.
Crappie crankbait's what I call it.
It was like Lucky,
the 1.0, the 1.0.
No, it was a Lucky Craft 0.5, I think.
Oh, wow.
Little bitty one. And he is reeling this thing faster than I can think any fish could even see it. And he wore me out. And I'm up there throwing the same bait, just, I ain't reeling that fast. That's crazy. And he'd be sitting there and all of a sudden he'd just stop. And he just, he'd set the hook. Finally, I was like, okay. After about 5 fish, I'm going to learn. And it blew my mind that he could make those fish hit that bait going that fast. And that's all they were doing. They were reacting. They weren't in a feeding mood, or they would have been eating what I was throwing. He was running that crankbait up on top of those fish so fast that like we've talked about it before, and I don't know if it was here, but I've talked about other people. It's like you're standing across somebody and you grab a baseball and you throw it right at their face. What are they going to do to it? They going to let it hit them, or are they going to catch it? Yeah, you're going to try to catch it.
They're going to react.
So, and that's what he's doing. And that's what you're doing to the fish that are in a bad mood.
Fish that are real lethargic and don't want to bite a lot of times too. When you're reeling a crankbait that fast and it hits something, it'll go boom and it'll bounce way off the stump. You'll get such a hard deflection, and that'll get your bite. Or even just like you said, just buzzing it past them, they just lash out at it, man. They can't. Like, let's get one thing straight: they're not smart. They don't have critical thinking abilities. Like, people will tell me, man, I'm like, we just talked about how tough these Lake Ford fish are. I get it. But people say, man, these fish are smart. And I look at them and I say, have you ever eaten a metal hot dog? Look at that flutter spoon, Jack. They eat it all the time. Like, they're not smart. They don't think about things.
They're chopping on buzz baits all the time. What's a buzz bait look like?
Nothing. It's making noise that makes them mad. But they will react. Like, that's the beauty of bass fishing. And we all fall, I think, maybe the number one thing we all fall in love with is that we're outsmarting them. We're tricking them, right? Like, you're making them bite something they ain't got no business biting. This ain't no shad. This ain't no brim. This ain't no crawfish. I'm going to throw this thing out here and get a bite. And I think that's, we love to catch bass, and bass is the number one sport fish in the country for a reason. How many times does a gar react to a buzzbait? Not very often. You see them everywhere, don't you? But bass, there's something in them. They're so aggressive, and you can make them react. So even on a day when they may not plan on eating nothing. They're not going to even eat today. They're not going to open their mouth. You can still catch them. If you stay tuned in, you make them react. And that's why I love power fishing and reaction fishing.
And, that's the funny part about, like I said, you get that funky little period, that transition period to where, they're not in a great mood. You're going to have to make them react or super finesse them, but the best part about that, and it's always really has been one of my favorite times of year is to fish in the fall once they get done being goofy, and when they start eating, because that's when it goes from having to make them react to. That's when you throw you throw a hollow body up there next to a couple lily pad stems or a piece of alligator weed, and all of a sudden you see a weight coming 5 feet from your bait. That's the time of year I like. When they sure enough get back there in the back of the creeks and start eating, and you're sitting there just trying not to set the hook because you see them coming from 5 feet away.
Frog fishing's real good. You see a lot of fish wake on the frog. When we get through the turnover, that's when the fish really go into a full-on feed mode. Who knows why? Does anybody know why?
Get ready for winter.
Getting ready for winter. That's true. Yeah. So let me tell you something about fall fishing that's really cool, that I love. And we're getting ahead of the game. I didn't plan on talking about fall because we're pretty good ways from that fall bite yet, but it's coming. Here's what's neat about the fall. The male fish are still eating real good when you come out of turnover because, hey, they just felt real bad and they didn't eat much and they just survived a long summer and they're kind of thinned out and they're hungry. Okay, so they start biting because the water's still real hot. The water temperature's still high enough. Their metabolism's still going real good. So they bite real good because of, it's just what Mother Nature tells them to do. Their metabolism's running. They got good oxygen content. The water's cooling off. They feel good. They get active. But them big fish, them females,
Got too much drink.
when you get past the turnover, they're pregnant.
This is amazing.
Anybody ever watch a pregnant woman eat? You wonder where some of that violent chasing stuff down from 10 feet away and all that stuff comes
I
from?
want it now, and I want it now.
That's what all these female bass are. When we come out of turnover, they're pregnant. They're just getting pregnant. And so as you get on in October, November, you start seeing all these big fish show up. The original state record from Lake Fork, Mark Stevenson's famous fish Ethel, was caught in November. Just a pregnant girl that got hungry, man. That's when you start seeing a lot of these big giant fish. The last sherrylunker that was caught by a guide customer with a guide out here was Lee Livesey's customer. It was caught in November. That's the last sherrylunker that was caught out of here by a fishing guide, or caught by one of their customers. So it's exciting. I love getting to the dog days of summer because once we get to the dog days of summer, I'm fixing to.
Got that hump.
We've been doing the same thing for a long time now. Kind of start doing this stuff in May, and it kind of goes all the way through August. Summer's our most.
I like my job.
Summer's our most dominant season of the year.
Ready for hunting season.
Yeah.
More excitement.
And so we've been doing the same thing for a while out here on the pond, and I get excited when we get to this time of year because I think of this as being the beginning of my year. To me, I take, you guys that follow me know, I take 2 weeks off in the beginning of August every year from guiding, hang out with my kids, go fish with my buddies a little bit, hang out with a wife and she ain't yelling at me a little bit. Yeah. Well, it's not undeserved. But when I come back to work, which was a couple days ago for me, full time, where I'm out on the water every day, this is my January 1st, and I'm stoked. Man, look how full this place is, and it stayed full all the time.
What made you just decide to try to make your own bait? What was just that?
That's
I'm gonna try this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like that.
It's a great little story.
I just want to know if you got some in the truck.
You know,
probably does.
I don't think I do.
Oh.
'Cause I had to take my truck. To
I got some of that.
Probably in Billy's truck.
I got some of that yellow and black boat out there.
We'll see him this
And I am going to try. I know the hollow bodies have been scarce this summer. I've been behind. Tackle Warehouse has pretty much pounded me all year. I just now got them somewhat restocked, and I've been kind of without help for a few months. So it's just been me and my wife pretty much. So I've been having to,
double tap.
do my normal deal and try to make baits as much as I can.
And hollow bodies are time consuming.
Hollow bodies, like I said, I let him talk me into making them and selling them because
So
that's
the
what's gonna
It's
happen.
Billy's fault.
What do we have? It's the hollow body for sure, big perm for sure. Is there anything else that's my fault?
some stuff I do to myself, but like I said, yeah, you twisted my arm into that one because they are a pain.
These were things that he just had for his personal
Uh,
stash hanging in his
The mag
shop.
crawler's not that big a pain. Now that I finally got me some help the last couple of weeks. I've got a college kid that is kind of helping me do some of the little tedious stuff in the shop. That's thankfully going to free me up a little more because I do all the painting myself. I dip all the hollow bodies. I was talking to a buddy of mine. It's hard for me to, I guess, let other people do things.
Well, that ties into how this
Yeah.
started, because so I kind of know. So I'm gonna tee you up here. The way Heath was just making baits
For himself, like just.
to use,
Yeah.
like for him to use. He had no plans on selling them. Wasn't gonna sell them. Then
No, I
You
made
wanted them your way.
I made swim baits the way I wanted swim baits to make, and I first started doing that several years ago. And I got to know Cameron.
Cameron, who is actually, ironically, we're sitting here in Lake Fork Marina. Cameron is the owner of Lake Fork Marina's son.
Yes.
Miss Dana, that's her son.
I got to know Cameron back several years ago. I guess we were in college at the same time. I think I'm a little older than him, but we got to talking, and we were both kind of into swim baits real big. And like I said, I started talking to him. Yeah, you know, I've been pouring some swim baits. You know, I've been catching some fish on them just for myself. He goes, well, we'll bring some up here, and I'll put them in the store. And that's when he was working in the store a lot. I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah, just bring them up here. He said, well, I said, why don't? I said, I'll have to get some boxes or something. So I think at the time it was, I printed out a little deal on my computer with like a shipping tab label or something, you know, in black and white. I think I called them HT swim baits or something. I don't even remember exactly. I think that's what it was called. I think I still have some old packaging.
Oh, that's cool.
And I stuck them up here, and it was springtime, and the very first one that I brought up here to sell was that line through poacher. And I can remember I dropped off, I don't remember exactly how many I dropped off, probably, because at the time I was doing it in my kitchen at my house, using my wife's microwave, which I do not recommend you do that. Because it was funny.
He quickly moved to the garage.
Yeah, because she'd come in.
Bought her a new microwave.
Yeah, because she'd come in and I'd have swim baits.
The bait making and the microwave both moved to the garage.
I
Real
mean,
quick.
bought her a new microwave.
Yeah, 'cause she'd come in and I'd have swim baits laid out, you know, all lined up, curing, completely covering her bar island and all over the counter, and she'd be like, she had a picture, like a video. She came in one morning because I'd been making baits all night. And she was like, she has it somewhere on her phone. But and then it was funny because I brought them up here, and it wasn't probably 2 or 3 days. Cameron calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm out of swim baits." I was like, "You serious?" He's like, "Yeah." He said, bring me some more." I said, "How many do you want me to bring you?" He said, "As many as you can give me." And therefore, like I said, it was basically as fast as I could make them. I brought them up here, and we rocked along doing that. Like I said, this is the very first place that ever sold any of my swim baits. Like I said, I have a kind of a soft spot in my heart for this place.
This place is the only reason you ended up selling them.
Like I said, Dana and Ken have been extremely good to me through the years. Like I said, they kind of started I've told Cameron. I told Cameron one day, it's been a while. I said, "Man, I don't know whether to punch you or hug you." Sometimes,
There's
but
probably some moments you want to punch him, but
so I was like, because you got me started in all this mess, and now there's no turning back. So that rocked along, just selling them, kind of a little private label deal and under the table to him, and we did that for a couple years, and it got to the point where, like I said, we had kids, and my wife was kind of contemplating. She was working full time through our first kid, and she was kind of wanting to stay home a little more with the first baby and everything, because like I said, we were having to do I'd keep them on my days off and all this stuff, and I said, we can try to make this bait company thing work, and so I had a buddy, and we kind of come up with the name Smash Tech, and ended up going ahead and getting a logo, getting printed bags, and kind of jumped in with both feet, and moved everything out to the garage, which at first it started, and she likes to tell people, and I've got a picture somewhere, it started out with a little table about that big. I had it on the wall of the garage, and I had I don't know, I think a microwave and just like this little bitty table and like a little shelf. And I said, that's all I'll need. I'll be good. Well, then, you know, another table comes in, and then it's the whole wall, and then I get another table, and then pretty soon her car isn't in the garage anymore. And
That's when I met you. The car was not in the garage.
yeah, so it all got kicked out, and then I ended up having to get some help, and then it got to where we couldn't even walk. Yeah, you couldn't walk in the garage, so I was like, well, and this was, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago.
When I first started going, when I first really got to know Heath, and I went over to his place for the first few times, man, I'd walk in there, and it was for a guy like me, like it was like walking into a kid and walking into a candy store, man.
Oh, yeah.
Because I walk in there and there was baits everywhere, and you couldn't hardly move, and there's just stuff like Miss Pours over here and this over there and good baits over here, and I'm like, I'll take one of everything.
And it's still like that.
It's Miss Porch place.
Yeah, it's still like that, but we had to.
We got a bigger shop though.
Yeah, well.
There's just more
Yeah,
stuff.
but we ended up, like I said, about 2 or 3 years ago.
You built a shop.
I ended up having to build 1,000 square foot shop,
Wow.
and now you can't even walk in it. So
That's amazing.
it's really kind of, and every year it just keeps growing and growing. And like I said, y'all that are familiar with the bubble fry, Kickerfish had the bubble fry.
Bubble fry.
We bought the bubble
That's
fry
a big
from
deal.
them. Like I said, I got to be real good friends with Bill Wilcox, which he got to fish with the other day. I got to fish with Bill several times through the years, and it was funny because I had heard through the grapevine that Kickerfish was going to go out of business because of some health issues and stuff. And Bill was kind of famous for throwing the bubble fry. And so I called him. I was like, "Hey, what's the deal with this the bubble fry? Is it going to be gone? Kickerfish going out of business?" He's like, "Yeah, they're going to go out of business." I said, "Well, what about me maybe buying the mold and everything?" He said, "Well, I hope somebody does." He said, "I'd like it to be you." He said, "Because I'm down to about 100 chartreuse pepper bubble fries left." So I worked a deal with them and bought the mold and patent and everything for the bubble fry, and that's been a really good deal for us. Which it's funny because I had kind of started with swim baits and then branched into the soft plastic side, but I had never had a Carolina rig bait because I've been throwing bubble fry. And that's all I really wanted to throw, and I kept thinking, well, I need to come up with something for a Carolina rig, but I catch too many fish on the bubble fry, so I don't really. So then I ended up finally getting the bubble fry, so it kind of all worked out. But through the transitions and everything, like I said, I had a really close friend that worked for me for a couple years. He was working for me full time. Awesome guy. He was kind of my right hand man. He passed away in December of last year, so we've kind of had to do some adjusting and transitioning.
He was irreplaceable for sure.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I knew it at the time, but I've even come.
Didn't realize how big of a right hand man.
I've even like I said, I knew it at the time, but it's even more evident. He did the work of 2 or 3 normal people. So even though he was 70, at the time we thought he was in great shape, but he ended up having a massive heart attack. But it was awesome, like I said, and I've kind of had to restructure things. Kind of had to do away with some baits that basically he did and I didn't have to worry about. Like I said, we've done away with the smash stick. We're doing away with some creature baits that we used to do. Just focusing on the stuff that I can kind of control a little more. The swim baits and the big worm and of course the bubble fry. So, like I said, it has been like I said an evolution of from the kitchen to a shop that you can't even walk around in anymore. So
Those are the stories I like the most.
yeah, so it's been interesting to say the least. In Pittsburgh. It's in Pittsburgh, Texas. Like I said,
Every time I go to Lake Welsh, if I got anybody with me, I'm like, y'all wave at Heath.
yeah,
We drive right past his house.
yeah. And if I'm around, he'll swing by and
Steal stuff.
steal coals.
Yeah. I go in there and I steal stuff. That's what I do.
Why not?
I mean, that's the only reason I sit here and say all those good things about him, because he lets me get away with theft.
When he could legally not let you.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've got some, like this is a 7-inch, and we make the little 5-inch weedless.
Gary.
Gary.
That's my boy Gary.
I have a 6-inch now that is not ready to release yet, which is going to be a perfect size. I'm probably gonna. I've already been throwing it some. I've caught some fish on it. That 6-inch is going to be really fun.
I'm supposed to get the heads up
Yeah,
on this
just-
stuff first.
We
Well,
were just saying we hadn't
there's-
figured someone didn't have it.
There's
yet.
3 in my boat, so you'll have to come to my house and steal them out of my boat. I hadn't had time to release that. and I've got a little smaller bluegill that I hadn't had time to really release yet.
I do know about that.
That's all hopefully coming when I can get caught up in the fall. The plan is, I know Dana and them are, like I said, they're completely out of hollow bodies. They're low on several of the swim baits. The plan is to get them stocked up before Sealy. That's my hopes that I can have. This will probably be the first place that gets the 6-inch gizzard shad. I'll try to.
I mean, besides that black and yellow boat.
Yeah, you'll have to find them. So,
I mean, I'm gonna have to go steal them, but I'm gonna get them first.
yeah, we've been playing catch up all summer. Trying to get caught up, which that's a good problem to have, but you just don't get much sleep. So.
Man, this has been an awesome seminar. Want to make sure one more time. Any more questions? That was one question. We went on 20
What was
minutes.
that app you mentioned a while ago?
App. So we actually have an app that I kind of help run. I have some partners on it stuff, and it's called Fish Life, and the life is spelled with a Y. And it has, I do the Lake Fork. We have different lakes. We have several different Northeast Texas lakes on there. And I do the spots for Lake Fork and the power plant lakes that I fish a lot with Heath and stuff. Every month we update them and we put new fishing spots on there. And so when you open up, actually when this is done, I'll pull my phone out and I'll show it to you. But what we do is we place waypoints on there, and you can click that waypoint on your phone, and it'll open up a description. And it'll tell you, this is a big grass flat, creek channel runs through right here. We're catching them on a chatterbait, a frog, and a Cinco. Whatever. This is a main lake point. We're catching them on a Carolina rig and a jig. So it's always updating. It's always the information that I'm currently seeing go down out here. If patterns change, we've had a lot of this year where something's changed a little bit in the middle of the month, we'll change it right then. The good thing about it being an app is we can update it anytime we want to on the back end, and you guys are just always, every day you open that app, that's the best information I got. That's how it works. And it's per month subscription based deal. It's auto renewing. You can cancel anytime. So if you're just gonna be here for a week, you can get the app. When you leave, cancel it. You never get charged again, and it's $20 a month. That's how it works. I'll show it to you when we're done. Any more questions? No? Hey, thank you guys so much. The room is still full. Cannot say how much we appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thank you.